So this is the siyum, the end, the conclusion of this week's Dvar Malchut. Dvar Malchut, these are speeches given by a gathering of speeches that were given by the Lubavitcher Rebbe in 1992, very shortly before he had a stroke, very shortly, a month and a little bit more than a month before he had the stroke. I mean, it comes out two months actually before he had the stroke. So the Rebbe here is talking about the amazing occurrence which was in 1992 when all the nations in the world gathered in the United Nations building, especially America and Russia, and they decided that there would be no proliferation of weapons of destruction, and they would stop nuclear testing and nuclear development, and they would devote the money to building and to progress and to peace and to health and to education and to the benefit of all mankind. And it was agreed upon, and it actually was it was implemented for a certain amount of time, a certain degree. One second. Just 1 second. New people came in. There we go. All right. So this amazing event was, says the Rebbe, was a big first in the history of man. That the idea was that there would not be any more war anywhere in the world, and there was really that never. Like I said, I'm not a history expert, but basically this has never been in the history of the world that there's never been a time that there was a time when there was no wars in the world anywhere, or that people weren't being subjugated one under the other by force, etc. And this actually held on for I don't know, a while, a year, 2 years, couple of years, but it doesn't make a difference how long it held on. The fact is, it was decided, and it was actually actualized. As said the Rebbe, the fact that this amazing thing happened, and it happened according to the minds of these people, they all decided logically. It wasn't because of some sort of world catastrophe or some sort of big threat, whatever, that pushed them, necessitated they all come together. From their own free will and logic, they decided that it was to their benefit, and also it was possible, and it was necessary to make peace between all of the nations. The Rebbe said, the fact that this happened in the month of Shvat, which was the month that the previous Rebbe passed away, and a year later the Rebbe took over, and that it happened in New York, which was the place that the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe decided that was going to be the center of Judaism in the world, called Beit Rabbeinu Shebabavel, which was written in the Gemara in Megillah, that when the Jews, after the temple was destroyed, there's always going to be some central synagogue in the world, some central place where Torah is going to be spread out into the whole world. For a while, in between the first and the second temples, it was in Babylon, and etc. Moved to other places, maybe where Rashi was in France and in Germany, until finally it came to America, to New York, and that was the previous Rebbe. One building, 770 Eastern Parkway, where all of these emissaries of Chabad went all over the world and are bringing Jews back to consciousness, back to Jewish consciousness, all over the whole world. Judaism is being spread out from this one building, not only to religious Jews, to non-religious Jews. And what type of Judaism? Also Judaism which it contains and is based on the inner Judaism that stresses godliness, that stresses the Creator. And there was fulfilling what the Moshiach said to the Baal Shem Tov, 300 years earlier, that the future redemption and Moshiach is going to come. The Moshiach said, I am going to come when your teachings are spread out all over the place. In other words, when the Jewish souls are all woken up by the Torah. So the Rebbe said, okay, we have all these wonderful signs and all of these wonderful miracles occurring. But the question is, the Mashiach, in fact, is the future redemption is not here, and the temple is not built, and the Jewish people are still wandering around. Even if there's just one that's wandering around, there's much more than one, and totally in the darkness, and they're not aware of their Judaism, and they're not aware of the greatness of the Torah, and especially in the land of Israel has a government which is totally against Torah and Jewish identity and being unique and all these things. So how can it be? How can it be? This doesn't make any sense. Everything is here. The Jewish people have suffered enough. The critical mass of Jews has come back to God, and that should be it. I mean, what the Mashiach is already here. What could be more than that? So the Rebbe said, well, the answer to that is, I don't know. Why is it Shenoli Kabbalah Hoda? Why haven't we yet received the message? Where is this? How does this turn? How is it that we have not yet received the message that the third temple has been built? Lo Kabbalah Hoda v'tzivoy Mikdash. The third temple has not come from heaven, and we now can raise up the doors from below, or whatever, all the different opinions of what the holy temple is and how it's going to be built, who's going to build it, not what it is. Everybody knows what it is, but how it's going to be built. Is it going to come from heaven? All of it is going to come from, we're going to do it. Is it going to come? However the opinions are, it says that the whole Beit HaMikdash can be built within 24 minutes. Because it says that a Kohen, there's one opinion that a Kohen, the priests are not allowed today to drink wine, because it takes 24 minutes for wine to wear off. And when a Kohen is under the influence of wine, he can't serve in the Holy Temple. And maybe, so it could be the Holy Temple just come from heaven, and they'll have to do service. It's a law. So says the Rebbe, so what are we supposed to do? So says the Rebbe, from this we can understand the great necessity to do everything we can to speed up the actual redemption immediately. First of all, we have to learn from everything that's around us. We're learning mishpatim. Mishpatim means laws, the laws of the Torah. Pratya, the individual laws between man and man. It should be done in a way of peace. Obviously, and it goes without saying that we should avoid argument, hatred, dissension, contention. Yeah, you have to get rid of the reason why. We did this yesterday, but it's worthwhile to do it again. Eliminating the reason for this last exile. It says the second temple was destroyed because of hatred between Jews. And by means of this will come the future redemption, like the rabbis say, Tzion b'mishpat tipare. Tzion, the Tzion, which is the different opinions, Jerusalem or the Holy Temple or all of Israel or the Jewish people, it will be built with mishpat. Tzion b'mishpat tipare. The Tzion, the Jewish people, will be redeemed by means of the laws of the Torah, like it says, Tzion b'mishpat tipare. And also, v'shaveh b'tzedakah, giving charity, learning Torah in a way of peace, and also giving charity. Like it's explained in Kesef Talvez Amiyas Aniyamach, in this week's Torah portion, it says it's a commandment to give charity. The best charity is to give a loan. What is it called? Interest-free, to give a loan, not charging any interest. To a Jew, it's forbidden to take interest from a Jew on a loan. And even more, not just charity, money, but also to do acts of kindness. The acts of kindness are greater than charity. Like explained in Baba Basra, because it says that all the different details of what is tzedakah, and the main thing is great is charity, tzedakah, that in Makarevis is a gula, it brings the future redemption. Like it says, Ko Amar Hashem, Shamu Mishpat Asu Tzedakah Ki Karovo Yeshua Tilavo. Do Mishpat in Isaiah chapter 55, 1. This is what God says. Do justice and charity, because then my redemption will come. It says, what does it mean, my redemption? That God is in exile together with the Jewish people. But Tzidkasili Galos, and then my charity will be revealed. And it begins, first of all, with, like it's every Motzi Shabbos, when in this week's Torah portion, we should make a Malava Malka. And in the Malava Malka, there's a meal you're supposed to eat after Shabbos. You're supposed to make a meal, a small meal. And then here we're going to have an opportunity. Everyone will be able to donate money to the charity fund, big charity fund, that anyone who wants to can take a loan from the charity fund. And since that it's permissible to deal with communal matters on Shabbat to benefit the community, even though we're talking about money, which is usually not spoken about on Shabbat, but because these are community matters, so therefore it's very impossible that it's very, very proper that the one who is the manager of this charity fund should come up on the podium and he should announce on this Malava Malka, on this meal. Usually they have it in somebody's house, or sometimes they have it in one of the synagogues, a place that's big enough to have a lot of people, and certainly it should be in the nicest way, the most beautiful way. You should have good food and maybe somebody entertaining, who knows what. But Rovam Adras Melech, a lot of people should be sitting together, and everyone should give according to his his heart's desire, his pure desires to this community charity fund and loan fund. And this is the main thing, that the decision, it should be immediately. And the decision should and it should bring immediately the reward. What's the reward for all this charity and that we're talking about? The future redemption. Immediately. That then there will be a really big Malava Malka. Then there'll be a really big Suda. The meal of King David, David Malka Mashiach. It says that King David used to make a meal every after Shabbat went out, because he asked God, when am I going to die? And God said, I won't tell you when you're going to die, but one thing is that it's going to be on Shabbat. On Shabbat, you're going to die. Which Shabbat? I'm not going to tell you which one. So every Shabbat that King David lived through, he made a meal afterwards, a celebration meal. So therefore, even now, it says that it's a good thing to make this meal. It says, it's Suda David Melka Mashiach. And it should be, we should hopefully will make this meal with the Mashiach. And we'll make it in Israel, in Jerusalem, in the holy city, in the holy temple, the third holy temple. Now you can ask a question, how can this be? I mean, there's not enough flights. So the answer is, it says that God is going to fly personally. I don't know what it's going to be. God is going to fly everyone to Israel. This is even more amazing. It says that all the Jews that died and are buried outside of Israel, right? All of them, the Holocaust and the pogroms, thousands of years of Jews that had died in the first destruction, the second destruction. So it says every Jew that dies, there's one part of his body that always remains whole. It's some sort of a little bone at the base of the neck. Some people say at the base of the spine. Anyway, it's called the luz bone. And this bone cannot be destroyed. It's always whole. And it says that amazingly that God will make all of these bones and the bodies and whatever, there's some tzaddikim that their bodies are whole. The bones and the bodies and everything. That they brought, there was just recently Rabbi Edelman. He was the Rebbe's emissary to Tunisia, Morocco. and he was there. He was a Torah scholar and a very holy man. And he passed away in Morocco. And like, was it years later, they brought him back to Israel, and his body was whole. The same thing was with the fifth Rebbe of Chabad. That they had to move his grave because they were building some sort of a train through there or something like that. And they moved his body from one place. This is like 20 years after he died, and his body was completely whole. Completely whole. I think they even anyway, completely whole. His face, everything. In any case, however it's going to be, all of the dead bodies, all the dead people, all the dead bones, all the living people, they're all going to be transported miraculously to Jerusalem. And when in the third temple. And not only that, all the synagogues also. The Rebbe said, Beit Rabbeinu Shabbat, it says in the Gemara, it says in the Talmud, all of the synagogues are going to fly to Israel. The first one will be this Beit Rabbeinu Shabbat, the main synagogue, which the Rebbe says was 770. Eastern Parkway. They're going to fly to Israel. Okay, you won't have to make corona checks and all these things. Everybody's going to fly. Ubelashan, and you won't have to wear masks on the trips also. Ubelashan, Hatchalas in the beginning of the Masechet Shutfim, in the Masechet Baba Batra. And the Baba Batra, this was the last tractate of the three tractates that the Nezikin begins with, right? There's the order of damages. So in that there's the laws of all these different damages, which we went over before. Remember damages between people, the borrowers, loaners. Right in the beginning, it talks about of the last of the three tractates that begin the order of Nezikin, of damages. It says Shutfim Sharotzu, partners that want to make a division between them. We're talking about the conduct between a man and between people, should be in a way of two partners, Shutfim, that everyone should feel that he is a partner with every single other Jew, and every single Jew wants only to the benefit of his partner. How much more so when we can learn this from what's going on now in the United Nations. Back then, that even the non-Jews, they announced that they want unity and partnership and symbiotic relations. What is between the two? Peaceful relations between them. By means of this, they build. It says that's why they build a wall between them, which is the wall. A gazit, like the Lishkat Gazit, the walls of the temple. Then we can say that this hints at the building of the Holy Temple. Like it says over there, the Gazit Avnei, the Mishva. It says that the Lotivne Gazit says these are stones which are precious stones. Like it says, Kol Eila Avnim Yakaros Kamida Gazit. They are all precious stones made in the measure of these like bricks, whatever that they're made. They're not hewn out, these stones. It says that they had this worm the shamir worm they would make a line and the worm would split the stones. It talks about the greatness of the second temple. Binyan was greater than the first temple by 10 years and also in size. Like it says, that this is referring to mainly on the third temple. But you can also learn on the second temple. The second temple was greater than the first temple because it was bigger in size and it lasted 10 years longer. The first temple was 410 years, and the second temple was 420 years. The third temple will be eternal. So what's the Rebbe saying? The Rebbe is talking about all these things which seem to be completely impossible. It's never been such a thing, that all the Jews will be together, they'll all be in Jerusalem, there'll be a third temple. But says the Rebbe, there was also never such a thing that all the nations in the world gathered together to discuss and to decide that they're going to make peace with one another. This is a big novelty. And in continuation, and also what it says in the next week's Torah portion, Truma, that talks about next week's Torah portion is talking about the building of the tabernacle, which the tabernacle was made on the same exact plan as the holy temple. That's what it says, Asal and Mikdash, make for me a holy place and I will dwell within them. It doesn't say I will dwell in it, it says I will dwell in them, inside of each and every one. This begins with the individual holy temple, which is in each and every Jew. It doesn't say I will dwell in it. It says I will dwell in them, inside of each and every Jew, in the inner heart of every Jew, and in his individual house where he lives, and in his room. You live in a house, you have your own room in that house. Well, that should be a place of Torah, prayer, and charity, including and especially, and this we're especially talking about building and increasing the size of the synagogues and the places of learning, the schools, the yeshivas, in a way of a yichuli truma, zav, kesef, and achoshes. It says you should make this tabernacle from gold, silver, and copper. And there's the 10 other things, all the 13 ingredients, or some people say it was 15 ingredients, which were mentioned over there. Zav, kesef, and achoshes, techeles, v'argaman, tolah, shani. It's all these different types of garments and materials that by means of this, all the stones that were made for this, by means of this, by means of making your house into a holy temple, using it only for holy things, by making yourself into a holy temple, by means of making your synagogues and your places of learning and the yeshivas into holy temples, by means of this speeds up and hastens, and it brings about immediately the real building of the third temple, which will actually come by God. God's going to build it. Especially in these days, we're given the power and the incentive to do so. In addition to the special qualities of this month, Shvat, which is the 11th month of the year. So let's talk about the individual days and dates in this month. Just one moment. This Shabbat, I think it's going to be the 25th, right? No, wrong. This Shabbat is going to be the 27th of the month. So, okay, but the Rebbe said now we are talking about, the Rebbe is now, it says in the okay, we had special days of this month. One of the special days was the 10th day of the month. That's when the previous Rebbe passed away, in 1950. Now the Rebbe is speaking, this is 1992. 1 year later, on the 11th day of the month, and this month itself is the 11th month, was the day that the Rebbe took over. There's another, but really every date of this month, and really of every month, can be linked to something holy. For instance, the 25th day of the month, which that comes to be yesterday, 25th day of the month. Then we say, Ko tavorachu et bnei Israel. Ko means, thus you should bless the Jewish people. It's a sentence in the Torah that talks about how the priests should bless. It's a command for the priests to give this special blessing to the Jewish people. Birkat Kohanim. They bless the Jewish people, it says, with love. That's the blessing that they make. Asher kedushato shel Aaron, v'tzivanu levorech et am Yisrael ba'ava, with love. And by means of this, the blessing of the Kohanim that every single Jew blesses. Atem tiyu mamlechet Kohanim, because the Jewish people are a nation of priests. In the beginning of every day, after we say the blessings of the Torah, there's a whole order of blessings that you make in the morning. And two of them are blessings of the Torah. One blessing you make on the written Torah and on the oral Torah. And immediately afterwards, you're supposed to say words from the written Torah and from the oral Torah. Because when you make a blessing, you're supposed to do that thing that you're blessing immediately, right? You make a blessing on a fruit, you're supposed to eat the fruit immediately after the blessing. So you make a blessing on the Torah, so you say words of Torah. The words that we say after the blessing for the written Torah, that's the blessing of the Quranim. It's written in the Torah. That you have to say it with a feeling of the love of every Jew, like it's stressed. And we'd say, you say it even before prayer. We also have this custom to say, and the Arizal brought it down, that before prayer you have to say the sentence, you should love your neighbor as yourself. Like the Alter Rebbe writes in his Siddur, which this is equal to everybody, right? Everyone can say this prayer. This prayer. But the main thing is that the blessing of the Quranim includes all of the blessings in a complete way. Because when you bless, you're supposed to have blessing means you want to draw blessing and love and good of God into the world. And especially the main blessing, the blessing that we're going to make on the future redemption, which should occur immediately. After that, we come to the 26th day of the month, which that's today, Erev Shabbos, and the gematria of Shabbat is the 27th day of the month. Back then it was, and it's also the same thing this year. Erev Shabbat, the 26 is the numerical value of God's name, like we said before. That this is connected to also to the blessing of the Quranim. Ko tevarchu et bnei Israel. Ko is 25, the Jewish people, by means of the Quranim in the Holy Temple, that they use the name of God, b'shem ha'mefurish, the explicit name of God, which is not the case nowadays. We don't know this name, we don't use it. And the preparation for this is by means of the service of the Jewish people in a way of Shiviti Hashem Negdi Tamid. You should put God, the numerical value of 26, in front of me all the time. And also now, in the time of exile, now really everything you see in the world, you should try to connect it to God. Try to connect it to the Creator. Even if what you think is just some sort of a wild idea, but nevertheless to think about God and to try to see godliness in everything. A big expert at this was the Rebbe's father. The Rebbe's father was also a big Kabbalist. In Kabbalah, there's a lot of use of numbers and analyzing different names and rearranging letters. But the main point is to try to see and feel godliness in everything, and to use your mind also to think about Hashem. That by means of this, we hurry up the actual redemption of the name of God in the whole entire world, by means of the blessing of the Kohanim in the Holy Temple. Just like I am written, so I will be called. After this, we have the 17th day of the month. That's Shabbat. This Shabbat tomorrow is going to be the 27th day of the month of Shvat. And that's what's called Shemen Zayit Zach, right? We can correspond this 27 to what it says that you're supposed to take pure olive oil for the lamp, the menorah in the temple, not the lamp, the candelabra in the temple. It says it has to be pure oil, Zach, that's 27, to make fire constantly. That's the golden menorah. That's one block of gold. This hints at the uniting of all of the different types, 7 types. There were 7 stems, the 7 different types of Jewish people. That the Jewish people are compared to the 7 staffs, branches of the menorah, of the candelabra in the temple. And after this, there's 28th day of the month. That's going to be Sunday, next week. That adds koach, power, to the Jewish people. After that is the day before Rosh Chodesh, because this year Rosh Chodesh is going to be Yom Shlishi, Yom Sheni in the nighttime, a Monday night. Monday night is Rosh Chodesh. 2 days of Rosh Chodesh this month. So Monday is what's called Erev Rosh Chodesh. This is a preparation for Rosh Chodesh, which is going to be Monday night. That there's going to be the when the moon becomes new, and Rosh Chodesh, after the concealment of the, you can see the novelty of the renewing of the moon, and the Jewish people are compared to the moon. That it says that the Jewish people are going to become full, just like the moon does. And this will be the future redemption, the total redemption, especially Rosh Chodesh, when it comes this year, Rosh Chodesh, the first day of the month falls on Tuesday, the third day of the month, and the third day of the week. The third day of the week, it says in the beginning, when God created the world, that on the third day of the week, God said it was good twice. Kuchpel kitov. This be what type of doubled good? First of all, the main good is the redemption, and especially a double good, that it'll be double everything which is connected to the future redemption. And especially this year, when we have two Adars, the month of Adar, double months. And Adar is supposed to be the lucky month for the Jewish people. It's the day that we, of Purim, when we overcame our worst enemy, which is Haman. This is the month which transforms from bitterness to sweetness, sadness to joy, that what and the greatness, the joy of the redemption of Purim, when all the Jews were saved, was connected to the redemption of Passover, when all the Jews got taken out of Egypt, and the future redemption is going to be like the going out of Egypt. Like the prophet says, like the days of going out of Egypt, I will show you miracles. And that's why we make Purim in the second Adar, because we want to put the redemption of Purim next to the redemption of Passover. Redemption is an essential part of Judaism. Redemption is the birth of the Jewish people. It's the happiness of the Jewish people. It's the essence of the Jewish people. Take us, all the Jewish people, out of confusion and darkness and ignorance and misery, and bring us all to redemption and happiness and true identity and feeling Hashem. And to add on this idea of the redemption of Purim, the holiday of Purim, we put it right next to the month, right next to the holiday of Passover. This refers to the second Adar, which is right next to Nisan, which is not the case. The first Adar, when we're talking about now, announcing the month, we can say that the connection to this is a special connection to the month of Shvat. From the language of the Mishnah, it says there's no difference between the first Adar and the second Adar, except for reading the Megillah and gifts to the poor. We can understand this, that everything else, especially the redemption, the victory over our enemies, are there equal. Now we're going into the first month of Adar. This year there's going to be a second month of Adar also. The second month of Adar is when Purim comes, but the first month of Adar is exactly the same as the second regarding the redemption and happiness, victory over all of those that want to destroy Judaism and the Jewish people. And even more, since that it's called the month of Adar, and it's called the first Adar, so we can say that maybe it's the first, it's number one, it's a higher level. So we're true, we don't make the holiday of Purim in the first Adar, but nevertheless, this first Adar, it's called the first one, it's the highest, which is relevant especially to the seventh day of Adar, which the seventh day of Adar is the day that Moses was born and the day he passed away, and said that Haman, when he made the decree, he threw lots, he threw dice to see which day, which month he would make the destruction of the Jews, because Haman had control over the whole world, and he had a decree to kill all the Jews. And so he threw lots, and the lots came out in the month of Adar. He said, oh, that's good, because that's the month that Moses died. But it also happens to be the month that the seventh day of Adar, he died, but in the seventh day of Adar, Moses was born also. The main thing of Adar Rishon, that's the first Adar. So we find also other things, that Adar is the first Adar that we have. In addition to this, so if so, the month we're coming into is also the month of redemption. In addition to this, this is the Shabbat, the last Shabbat of the month of Shvat. It's called the Shabbat that blesses the new month. And we announce this in the Torah, that the Rosh Chodesh of Adar Rishon is B'Yom Shlishi. It's going to be on Tuesday. We announce it. Hari, that the Mashiach it can come immediately before Rosh Chodesh. That then we'll go back and sanctify and declare the months according to seeing, sight. It used to be in the time of the temple, and afterwards also for a couple hundred years, that the temple, the months were decided by witnesses. Anybody in Israel that saw the month would run to the holy temple, would run to the great court, and they would decide if the month was, if it was the beginning of the month or not. And this is going to return again. It's going to come back. It goes, so the place of the Sanhedrin, which will be set, it will be in the first Adar. This will be immediately, or maybe it'll be next to Nisan. In any case, it will be a thing that's going to happen very quickly. And we say, may it be God's will. And this is the main thing, that the future redemption by means of the Mashiach will come immediately, actually, how do you say, take of a miyad mamish, instantly. Now again, you might think that the Rebbe here is talking in how do you say, wishful thinking. Wishful thinking, this is religious thinking, this is the only option that we've got. All these religious people, we're not doing anything on our own, we're not making the army, we're not making this, we're not, says the Rebbe, listen, we did all the other things, we tried everything else. Let's do according to what God says. It says clearly in the Torah, there's no doubt about it. All the prophets prophesied it. Don't listen to other people that say that that they try to twist the words of the prophets. The prophets all prophesied, even the biggest prophets of doom. Jeremiah, we'll see in the end of this week's Torah, this Haftorah. Jeremiah that talked about the destruction of the first temple, and Isaiah, how God is so angry at the Jewish people and he's going to destroy them, he's going to spread them all over the world. Those same prophets said, God will never leave his people. God will never abandon the Jews. God will gather all of the Jews together from the entire world, and he'll gather them all to the Holy Land. And the Holy Land will always remain holy, no matter what any seculars or these other people think, missionaries, no matter what they say. It's always going to be holy, and Jerusalem is going to be holy, and the Holy Temple will be rebuilt by God himself. Mikdash Hashem Konanecha. This is not going to happen, it must happen. And if it happens right now, it's already very late. It should have happened a long time ago. Why it delayed, God will explain it. Mashiach will explain it. And the Rebbe said he's going to have a lot of explaining to do. May it be God's will. And this is the main thing, that the future redemption will come by means of the Mashiach immediately. And certainly you don't have to wait until the month of Nisan. And you don't even have to wait for the second Adar. And also we won't even have to wait for the first Adar, which is going to come with next Tuesday, Monday night. Why? So that the Mashiach Tzidkenu can come on this Shabbat Mavorchin, in the month of Adar, in the end of this month of Shvat. The Mashiach can come tomorrow. Zach Shabbat, he can come today also, but the Rebbe is now speaking about, the Rebbe is saying this on Shabbat. And especially on the Shabbat afternoon, after midday, in the time of Mincha. Suda Shlish is the third meal, which that's connected to the third temple, like we said before. And so it should be to us really, immediately, now, instantly, with all of the explanations, what now this was miyad means. It said miyad. This is the first letters of, it says is the first letters of Mem Yud Daled. He says Daled is Dover, that's the fifth Rebbe of Chabad. Yud is Yosef Yitzchak, that's the Rebbe after him, his son. And Mashiach is Menachem Shemo, the Rebbe said. The Rebbe is talking about himself. And immediately, Kolel, including all the first letters of Mem, Moshe, Yisrael, Baal Shem Tov, David, Malchut Mashiach, and also the other words, all the explanation, they should come now, Mamish, really, Some people say mamish, the letters of the Rebbe's name, Menachem Mendel Schneerson. In any case, L'chol, L'rosh, Miyad, immediately it should be actual. Mamish, Mamish, Mamish. Mashiach should come. Mashiach should bring the whole third temple down and gather all the Jews instantly. Amen. Now let's do the Yom Yom. Beautiful Sikha, worth going over. Let's do today's and tomorrow's. Yom Yom, this is a compilation of sayings of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe Yosef Yitzchak, that the Rebbe himself, he gathered together. It's called Yom Yom. Ahava, love, is the very life breath of Chassidut. Love. Love is the thread that binds the Chassidim one the other. It's the thread that binds the Rebbe to the Chassidim and the Chassidim to the Rebbe. It's also what binds God to us and us to God. Love works in a direct way and also in a reflective way. In other words, a direct way means that we love, and also someone responds to our love. It knows no barriers, transcends the limits of time and of place. Is this? Oh, very good. This is tomorrow, Shabbat. My father writes in one of his discourses. This is the previous Rebbe speaking, right? He's talking about the fifth Rebbe. Early Hasidim made a firm resolution in their souls to not do anything which is permissible, but for which it's permissible to do. They can do it. But if they felt a big desire or a lust to do it, not to do it, to wait until they don't feel a lust to do it, or to analyze it if this really has to be done or not. This breaks one's passion. So I'll tell you a story, a well-known story about a chassid whose name was Shmuel Mukas. He was a genius in Torah and learning, but he was also a joker. He liked to make jokes. He had a big sense of humor. Once the Hasidim were making a Farbringen, and they were sitting around, and when the Hasidim make Farbringens, they sat around and they would drink. They would drink vodka and they would talk about godly things. They would talk about godly things. They would tell stories, things they saw, they heard from the Rebbe. And usually when you drink vodka, you want to have something to eat afterwards. So they pooled all their money together. They didn't have that much money. And they bought a lung. Somebody went down to the butcher store and they bought a lung or a liver or something, whatever. And they brought this meat back and it was cooked. It was cooked. And they brought they put it on the table and they were going to resume their Farbringen because it's very difficult to drink vodka without eating a little bit of something afterwards. Anyway, this Shmuel Mukas, he took the plate with this liver on it or lung, whatever it was on it, and he started running around the room with it, lifted it up and started running around. So everybody said, sit down, we paid money for this thing and we don't have any more money. Just sit down, stop it. And he threw it out the window into the mud, into the whatever it is, into the gutter, into the toilet, whatever, he threw it out. So they all got angry at him. And they said, what type of a thing is this? Who do you think you are? And they were about to punish him. And suddenly the butcher came running in and said, don't eat the meat. Don't eat the meat. I made a big mistake. That meat comes from a not kosher cow. It was one cow that had some sort of a problem. It was in its lung or whatever. And we checked it and we mixed it up with another cow. Anyway, don't eat the meat. Don't eat the meat. So everyone looked at him and said, what type of a thing? Why didn't you just tell us you've got a question? Let's go and ask. Tell them that you sense there's something wrong. What are you taking running around and throwing it around? What are you, some sort of acting like a holy man or something that you know secrets? And they were about to punish him again. And he said, no. I want you to know the reason that I took that and threw it out is because once I went into the Rebbe, this was the first Rebbe of Chabad, for a private audience. And he told me that what it just says here, we just finished reading, anything that I have a big desire for, I should not do. Anything I have a big desire. As soon as they brought in that meat, I had such a tremendous lust to eat that meat. I mean, we're talking about a Jew that he really worked on himself and he only did what was really necessary to serve God. He said, I had such a tremendous lust for this meat, I knew that there must be something wrong. I picked it up and ran around, and the lust just did not go away. I really wanted to eat that meat. I realized this was what the Rebbe was speaking about. There must be something wrong with this meat. I didn't know what, but I knew that this was the message the Rebbe was giving me. Anything that you really have a big lust to do, hold yourself back from doing it. Analyze it. Have a good Shabbat with Moshiach now. This is Shabbat Mavorchin. We bless the next month of Adar. We should be bring blessing to the whole entire world. Every man, woman, child, wherever they are, whoever they are, should be blessed by us this Shabbat Mavorchim, and in a happy way. It's the month of happiness. We'll see you all, God willing, on Sunday at 8:15 in the morning. Shabbat Shalom.